Best Bites Forever.
Hi, I'm Chef Alicia, and today we're going to make Ninjabread men. That's gingerbread with a kick. Waka! Start off by mixing 5 cups of AP flour, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and ½ teaspoon of baking soda in a small bowl. Next, we're going to add 4 teaspoons of ginger, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 3/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and ½ teaspoon of nutmeg. And for the kick, ½ teaspoon of cayenne, 1 teaspoon of mace, and ½ teaspoon of black pepper. Waka! Yep, that's my ninja sound. So anyway, I have 16 tablespoons, which is 2 sticks of butter, and 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar inside of my KitchenAid. I'm mixing on like, I don't know, number 2 or 3, and I might have even cranked it up to 4, just until it looks creamed together, and then stop and scrape the bowl and scrape the paddle attachment, and make sure you do both, okay? Then add 2 eggs, and go ahead and turn your KitchenAid back on, or your hand mixer. You can do these with a hand mixer, no big deal, and mix those eggs in really well. Once you get those eggs mixed in pretty well, go ahead and stop the mixer again and scrape your bowl, scrape the paddle attachment. Make sure you're really getting at the bottom because you don't want to have any butter chunks stuck down there. It's very important to scrape, 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 everyone. So please don't skip that step, okay? And I just started my mixer one more time to get those little chunkies that I just scraped off mixed in with the butter cream yumminess mixture. Now I'm adding in 1/3 of my dry ingredients, so that's the flour, salt, baking soda, and all those spices mixed together. And mix that in just until it's combined. Don't overmix this or you'll end up with tough cookies, which they are ninjas, so they're going to be a little tough anyway, but anyway. So next is half of the molasses. Go ahead and put that in. And just mix that up until it's combined into the batter. And back to the flour. I'm going to add another 1/3 of my flour mixture, my dry ingredients, into the batter. And again, just mix that in until it's combined into the batter, but don't overmix. And grab your spatula because it's time to go ahead and scrape again. Scrape the bowl and scrape the spatula or your beaters, you know, whatever that you're using. And then we're going to go ahead and add what is left of the molasses. Notice how nice and clear my measuring cup is that my molasses was in. That's because I sprayed the inside of it with cooking spray before I measured, so that just makes it a lot easier to get out in the end. And once you get that molasses mixed in, let's go ahead and grab our spatula again and scrape the bowl really well. And believe me, all of this scraping is worth it, and it's totally important to do, so please make sure you're doing it. And now we're ready to add the rest of our dry ingredients, so go ahead and add them in there and mix them just until incorporated. Again, do not overmix this dough, guys. Once your dough is done, it should be looking really beautiful like this. So you just see I'm taking it off of my KitchenAid here, and you get to get a little look at what my dough looks like. I'm pulling it all, the chunkies, off of the paddle, and I'm going to get my spatula and just scrape it together into one little happy dough ball. Once you have your happy little dough ball, divide them in 2, and then divide each of those pieces into 2. So you end up with 4 equal pieces of the dough. Now put a piece of dough onto a piece of plastic wrap and mash him down into a disc that is about 1 inch thick. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I just wrap mine up in regular old plastic wrap, and I turn it, kind of flip it, and wrap it the other way too. I like to double wrap it because I don't want it to pick up any funky flavors when it's in the refrigerator. Not that my refrigerator is funky, but you know, onions and garlic and stuff. Anyway, put it into an airtight container like a Tupperware for 4 hours at least and up to 2 days. These are my awesome cookie cutters. You can find them on Amazon, and I'll put a link on my site and in the description if I can. Okay, so this is the next day. Mine have been in there for probably 18 hours or so. And you want to start off by putting flour on your work surface and the cookie cutters, your rolling pin, everything that you're going to use. And I also put a piece of parchment paper down on my counter. If you do the parchment paper thing, you'll want to tape it down so it doesn't move around. And go ahead and grab one of those bad boys out and unwrap it and get ready to roll. Oh, and stick the rest back in the refrigerator because you want to keep the dough nice and cold, okay? Now it is time to roll the dough, and you want this to be about 1/4 inch thick before you start cutting cookies. Make sure you flour the top and make sure it's well floured under because it gets pretty sticky. Also, if it's like impossible to roll, just give it a minute or 2 and let it get a tiny bit warm, but you do not want this to get warm. You know, you still need to keep it cold or your little ninjas won't keep their little ninja shape. Here I've started cutting my little guys out, and just try to keep the cutters as close to each other as possible because obviously you don't want to have a ton of scraps. But you can take your scraps and just kind of mush them together and re-roll them. Also, the best way for you to move any cutout cookie is to either use a bench knife or a spatula and just kind of scoop right under them and take them over to the pan that you'll be using and carefully, delicately put them on the pan and then poke them to get them out. And there are my scraps all balled up, which I'm going to re-roll later. And this is what my little guys look like before they're going to go into the oven. I'm going to bake them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 9 to 11 minutes. And make sure you're watching them, because if you overcook them, they will get like super dry. And you can tell they're done as soon as they look dry and dull instead of like shiny little guys. Once you pull them out of the oven, let them sit on the cookie sheet for maybe a minute and then slide that whole paper onto the cooling rack. Oh, and as a side note, I didn't use butter or grease, and you can also do these on a silpat. And now for the super fun part, decorating the little ninjas. So I'm just putting some cornstarch down on my parchment paper, which again I have taped down to my counter, and I put cornstarch on my rolling pin, and that's a little piece of white fondant that I have. You can buy fondant already made at like any baking store, Walmart, Michael's, craft stores, places like that. And then I just used my cookie cutter that is the same shape as the guy I'm decorating to cut a little piece of the fondant out. So there's his little ninja suit. And now I'm putting some buttercream down onto my little guy so that the fondant has something to stick to. And I'm just going to move my little guy out of the way here for a second and poke his little ninja suit out. Isn't it cute? Then to cut out his little eye hole from his face mask thing so that he can see, I'm using one of my piping tips, which also put some flour on it and then just cut it out. See his little eye holes? Just like that. Next, put your little ninja's clothes on so that he's not naked. And just kind of gently move it around and smooth it out so that it's stuck to him and you don't have any like buttercream clumps underneath him, because that's not cute. Next, I'm going to lightly mist him with water just to give him kind of a shine, and it also helps to get rid of some of that powdery look that he might have from the cornstarch. So just spray him and then kind of rub it around a little bit. And you can add the rest of the details of his little suit with either buttercream or royal icing. If you plan on like covering these up or having them sitting around for a while, you might want to use the royal icing because it does get harder quicker. But either one really works great. So I'm just doing the little laces on his boot things right now, and I kind of gave him a little waistline and like a little shirt seam and piped around his mask, but I'm going to show you up close right now so you can get an idea of what I did. So there's my little guy. Isn't he so cute? He's like, wagga! Tiny little wagga! That's his kicking noise. Wagga! Now this part is incredibly tedious, but if you want to give your little ninja guys some tiny little ninja eyes, then what I did is I used chocolate sprinkles and just slowly and carefully put them inside where his little eyes would go and stick them down with your buttercream or royal icing. I also found that using a toothpick kind of helped me out with this, and it may be smarter to do your buttercream mask afterwards so you don't smear that. And when you're all finished, you're going to end up with some awesome little ninja dudes that look like this, and they're having secret little ninja fights in your kitchen while you're sleeping. They're like, wagga! And I wanted to show you just kind of up close in case you do want to give it the piping detail. So that was my little white ninja, and these are my little black ninjas, and obviously I did the white piping on them, and I think the black ones turned out super duper cool because they're even more shiny and their piping kind of just jumps right off of them. I had actually originally planned on doing all little black ninjas, but then my husband was telling me about some show he watched when he was a kid that had a white ninja, so of course I had to do a white ninja for my husband, and then they were cute, so I did more white ninjas. And I like this little guy too. I didn't do any piping on him, but I think that he's really cool. He's my super sleek, sneak up on you, waka kind of ninja. See that? You see how he just sneaks right up on you? Yep, he's stealthy. That's right. So anyway, here are my Ninjabread cookies, and they are definitely going into my Christmas cookies this year because there's something cool and different that I think everybody will enjoy. And I hope you liked this video, and if you did, don't forget to like it, and also please don't forget to subscribe. Happy cooking, everyone!
bestbitesforever.com